Welcome to the fourth in this series on applied professional ethics from the Chartered Banker Institute, in which we aim to raise awareness of and stimulate discussion on a wide range of issues relating to the everyday running of our banks and the day-to-day lives of bankers. I'm Simon Thompson, Chief Executive of the Institute and one of the co-authors of the series. In this chapter, we consider the ethics of reward. Once in the dear dead days beyond recall, wrote Fred Schwed, an out-of-town visitor was being shown the wonders of the New York financial district. When the party arrived at the Battery, one of the guides indicated some handsome ships riding at anchor. He said, "Look, those are the bankers' and brokers' yachts." A naive visitor asked, "Where are the customers' yachts?" Schwed used this plaintive question as the now celebrated title of his searing 1940 commentary on the cynicism of insider dealings that characterized Wall Street's demise a decade earlier. The client always comes last. At the close of the day's business, Schwed observed, professional investors take all the money and throw it up in the air. Everything that sticks to the ceiling belongs to the clients. 75 years later, in the aftermath of the ruinous 2007-2008 banking crisis, we're asking ourselves, have things really changed? In the public mind, not much perhaps, it seems. Bloated fat cap remuneration has provided an easy way to attack bankers, and the still entrenched mechanisms for structuring pay, which have so startlingly seemed to reward failure, have deeply undermined the legitimacy of all bankers in the public eye. And so the ethics of reward can't help being skewed by this recent history. And one of today's persistent problems is how discussion about reward has become so firmly rooted in a Me Too comparability, which supposes there's some universally accepted definition of reward in the first place. Well, there isn't. In the priesthood, to use just one example, reward can often take the form of a stipend crudely calculated as being just enough to cover your essential expenses and so prevent you having to seek a job elsewhere. The underlying concept is that reward is essentially a compensation for a person using their time in the service of an institution, in this case, the church. But there are other understandings. As the word itself tends to suggest, reward can almost seem to be a prize for doing what people should be doing anyway in the job for which they're employed. And the idea is further complicated by the fact that reward here may often imply much more than mere payment. It may also include other intangible but highly prized components. Reward, after all, is also full of symbolic measures of personal success. People serving in the armed forces, for instance, will often have chosen this arduous and dangerous job not for its monetary reward, but partly because of its intense sense of comradeship and the recognition, sometimes admiration, they earn from their peers and the wider community. These military symbols of achievement can be still more ephemeral. Commandos will go to almost any length in the grueling training and the arduous tests they must master to earn the right to that distinctive emblem, the green beret, which attracts such respect both inside and outside their own ranks. In civilian life, too, symbols of achievement and status were not always linked so firmly to cash either. It used to be possible for a relatively impoverished member of the nobility to retain his or her social status through the use of the title alone. And in our own sector, a bank manager's recognised status within the community was once a large part of that job's inherent reward, much more than the relatively modest pay it often attracted. But this has all changed. Today, many of these broader symbols of respect that enrich lives have themselves increasingly become priced and packaged as money alone takes on the singular definition of social status. And for bankers themselves, the irony is that the decline in the job's social standing means the pressure for monetary reward has become even more urgent and explicit, regardless of any latent comparisons with other professions or walks of life. Comparisons in any case can prove endlessly perilous. Monetary measures of reward vary and are notoriously tricky to lay against each other. The market rate for skill is often a concept incapable of much external comparison. How many footballers, for example, have the international skills to win a World Cup? Vanishingly few. That makes the talent very highly prized and rewarded. But it's not a matter of social utility, simply an example of a unique marketplace. Comparisons could break down for other reasons too. Many doctors in the United States, or indeed in parts of Asia, will earn what look like positively princely sums to medics working in this country's NHS regime, where the remuneration marketplace is anchored on quite different principles. Here, many doctors will feel it ethically unacceptable to work in private medicine. Some do, some don't. They choose to earn less to maintain what they see as a moral integrity. And similarly, in countries where patients simply can't afford to pay for a doctor and doctor salaries are low, people still want to be doctors because of the respect, even honour, they see attaching to it. In any event, there's a point at which this yearning for yardsticks becomes meaningless. You might believe it right, for instance, that a Prime Minister ought to be paid more than most leading bankers. So why isn't he or she? And why do many consider it bad form when a former Prime Minister discovers ways of earning gigantic sums in lucrative private consultancy beyond his old life in Westminster? It seems we've always had this hang-up about what other people earn. Yet it's a minefield strung with ethical tripwires. At what point do we say of the chief executive of a highly profitable enterprise with happy customers, satisfied shareholders, this great salary you're paying yourself is too much? What's the ethical tipping point at which the reward defines itself as being too much? Is there a tipping point at all? And yet, with bankers in particular, we persist in fussing about the levels of actual reward and call in aid all manner of comparisons simply to bolster a sense of moral outrage. And that's surely the point. It's not because there's necessarily something morally wrong with this or that stratospheric reward. It's because of the currently huge apparent disconnect between payments and performance. It's a debate that's most sharply focused on banking bonuses and the degree to which they do or do not reflect actual organisational or individual performance. Banking bonuses have become the lightning rods of public and customer disaffection. Bluntly, in the public mind, bankers simply don't seem to have earned their bonuses. Yet in two clear respects, even this blunderbuss reprimand doesn't fully hit its mark. In the first place, it's a fact that many people are working in banking on really quite modest baseline wages, and in practice rely heavily on historic bonus structures to supplement their final take-home packages. These have become deeply entrenched components of staff reward in banking. They are changing, many banks are removing these, but we shouldn't underestimate the systemic difficulty or the likely economic impact of dismantling them, however worthy that now seems. And reward comparisons have another stumbling point. It's easy to identify our underperforming banks and question whether those managing them and working for them are earning too much. But the parallel truth is that a great deal of very good work is being undertaken by highly able practitioners precisely to turn these troubled institutions around and transform their performance and their balance sheets. People are being rewarded well for stabilising and rebuilding these near catastrophes. Out of these often contrarian experiences, however, it's possible to define some of the basic principles that we feel should inform the ethics of reward, and we identify 5 key components. Firstly, the long term. We believe that rewards should be designed to foster long-term staff and customer loyalty, and long-term sustainable corporate performance. Secondly, in terms of roles, we feel there should be clear definitions of the individual roles for which bank staff are being employed and of the rewards to reinforce those roles. Thirdly, salaries, pay structures should be steadily transformed towards salaries for defined job, roles, functions and goals, and focus less on short-term performance targets. Focus less on the fourth category, bonuses. We don't feel that bonuses should form a major part of reward for most staff. Incentives should only reinforce customer-focused behaviours. And finally, communities. We believe that rewards should help reinforce a bank's wide beneficial social role and take specific account of its broader stakeholder communities. None of this constitutes any treatise against the accumulation of wealth, and nor should it. As we might paraphrase the principled message of the 18th century Methodist leader John Wesley, making money in the right ways and using it in the right ways is of great importance and can lead to social good. All the necessary instructions, he felt, can be condensed into 3 simple rules. 1. Gain all you can by honest industry. 2. Save all you can. And 3. Give all you can. Amen to that. This is the kind of banking which we, as the authors of this new series on banking ethics, want to play our part in creating, building on the foundations for a revitalised banking profession currently being laid. Thank you for listening. Please visit our other case studies and discovery sessions in the Ethics, Culture and Conduct Toolkit, and share your views with other session participants on our discussion forum. And do remember to record your time as professionalism and ethics on your CPD logbook. Thank you.